Welcome back for another deep dive. Today we're really getting into something fascinating, the echoes of revolution in West Africa.
Hmm.
And we're asking this really compelling question. Is the spirit of Thomas Sankara, the revolutionary leader, actually living on today, decades later, in someone like Ibrahim Traoré?
It's more than just, an interesting historical comparison. The question itself is hugely significant, particularly when you look at the continent today.
Right.
You've got these two figures, right? 35 years apart, but linked by the same country, Burkina Faso, and this shared enemy, or at least a perceived one, neocolonialism.
Explain that a bit more, neocolonialism.
Sure. It's basically the idea that powerful nations still exert control over their former colonies. Not directly, not through ruling them, but through, say, economic pressure, political influence, cultural sway.
So subtly shaping things behind the scenes.
Exactly, without needing soldiers on the ground. It's
Right.
a really potent idea, and it feels very current for many people.
Okay, so to understand today, we need to rewind. Let's go back to October 1983. Burkina Faso, well, it was Upper Volta then.
That's right.
And this is where Thomas Sankara steps onto the stage. A really charismatic army captain, only 33 years old. He launches this democratic and popular revolution.
And he wasn't your typical leader.
No kidding. I mean, can you picture a head of state riding a bike to work, no big motorcade, no flashy jewelry?
Definitely not. He was making a statement.
And he brought in these radical changes almost right away.
Absolutely. His policies were revolutionary in the truest sense. They challenged everything about how African nations were sort of expected to behave.
Like renaming the country.
Yes. From Upper Volta to Burkina Faso, the land of upright people, that alone tells you something.
Mm-hmm.
Then he slashed salaries for ministers, banned foreign aid if it came with strings attached, gave land back to the peasants.
Big stuff. What about health, environment?
Huge vaccination campaigns. And he organized planting millions of trees to combat desertification. He wasn't just talking politics. He was thinking about the land, the people's well-being.
They called him the African Che Guevara.
They did. He had that same kind of fire. He believed real independence had to come from the people, from the ground up, and he saw France and, importantly, a kind of African complacency as major obstacles.
Okay, but actions like that, being so fiercely independent, anti-aid,
Mm-hmm.
did that actually unify everyone? Or did it cause splits?
Well, that's the thing. It definitely fired up a lot of popular support. The youth, the farmers, they saw real change happening.
Right.
But it also deeply unsettled the powerful, both inside Burkina Faso and internationally. Cutting off aid, for example, that messes with established economic relationships.
So, inspiring but also divisive, made enemies.
Absolutely. You don't make those kinds of waves without creating friction.
And that fire, that dream, it didn't last. It seemed to just vanish.
Actually, short.
October 15th, 1987. Sankara is assassinated.
Yeah.
A coup led by his own friend, Blaise Compaoré.
Mm-hmm. A deep betrayal.
And there's this widespread belief that France had a hand in it, or at least supported it.
Yes, that suspicion has lingered for decades. Officially denied, of course, but the timing, the context, it fuels the belief.
And just like that, the revolution seemed over. The dream died.
Hmm.
Makes you think, doesn't it? What if he hadn't been killed? What could have happened?
The great what-ifs of history. It's haunting, really. A powerful moment cut short.
But some ideas, some dreams, they don't stay buried forever.
No, they don't.
Fast forward 35 years. We're in 2022. Burkina Faso is in crisis again.
A deep crisis. Jihadist insurgencies raging in the north, the government looking completely overwhelmed. People are desperate.
And then onto the scene comes Captain Ibrahim Traoré.
Right. Another young captain, just 34, leads a coup on September 30th, pushes out the previous military leader.
And the connection to Sankara was immediate. People saw it right away.
Instantly. There were activists saying, his cap, the way he spoke, his tone, it felt like Sankara was back. It was almost uncanny for some.
And Traoré leaned into it, didn't he? He invoked Sankara's name.
Repeatedly. He made it clear. His mission statement was powerful. We are not here for power or luxury. We are here for dignity, for sovereignty, for our people. Very Sankarist language.
And his actions seemed to follow that. Rejecting French military help, telling the French army to leave.
Yes, a decisive break. And then turning to Russia, to Turkey, for military partnerships instead.
Now, you mentioned this could be seen as both pragmatic strategy and a kind of spiritual continuation. Can it be both? Aligning with other big powers while claiming anti-imperialism?
That's the core tension, isn't it? Look, pragmatically, Burkina Faso needs security help, urgently. The insurgency is real. So if France is out, you look elsewhere. Russia and Turkey are willing partners.
Okay, so practical necessity.
But for many, especially the youth who grew up with the Sankara legend, any move away from France, the former colonial power, feels like continuing Sankara's fight. It's about asserting independence, choosing your own partners.
Even if those new partners have their own agendas.
Exactly. It's less about swapping one master for another and more about the symbolic act of diversification, of saying we decide. So yeah, I think pragmatism and symbolism can coexist here. The choices feel strategic, but they carry that historical weight.
Let's put them side by side then, Sankara and Traore. The parallels are striking.
Almost eerie.
Age when taking power. Sankara 33, Traore 34.
Both army captains. It's like history repeating a pattern, you know?
Yeah.
Young officers stepping in when things fall apart.
View on France. Sankara, fiercely anti-neocolonial. Traore orders French troops out.
Clear echo there.
Economic vision. Sankara pushed self-reliance, anti-aid with strings. Traore talks up domestic development.
Similar emphasis on internal strength, on building from within.
Message to the youth. Sankara said, invent your own future. Traore says, rise and reclaim your country.
That same call to action, that same focus on dignity and taking control.
And the symbolism. Sankara's bicycle, his simple clothes. Traore also with this modest appearance, the revolutionary tone.
It all adds up. You see why people call Traore a signal flare. For young Africans looking at him, it's not just like remembering Sankara. It feels like a possible path forward.
But is it a real path? Or just nostalgia? Is Traore offering something new, or is this just another military takeover dressed up in old slogans?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And people are definitely asking it. The roadmap idea isn't about literally copying Sankara. It's about capturing that spirit self-determination, standing up to external influence. For a generation frustrated with the status quo, seeing anyone challenge perceived foreign control, even if it's a military figure, resonates deeply. It taps into that long-held desire for sovereignty.
And the world Traore operates in is, well, it's even more complex than Sankara's time.
Much more complex. Sankara had the Cold War backdrop. Traore has global tech everywhere, terrorism that's mutated, economic systems designed for extraction, this intense scramble for Africa's minerals. The stakes feel incredibly high.
Which brings us back to that neocolonialism idea. Sankara's famous line, he who feeds you controls you.
Exactly, and Traore seems to live by that too. He's openly questioned why, with all the Western military bases around, people are still dying every day from attacks.
A direct challenge.
A very direct challenge. How effective has this foreign help actually been?
And he's acted on it. Kicking out French media, cutting military ties, even seizing mines back from foreign companies.
Yes, taking back control of resources is a huge part of it.
And the reaction from the West. Predictable, maybe? Calling him authoritarian.
It does sound familiar, doesn't it? Remember how Sankara was labeled a radical Marxist?
Right before he was killed.
Exactly. An African journalist pointed this out. The narrative seems to repeat. When an African leader challenges the economic order, especially around resources, the labels start flying. It's not just about policy. It's about questioning who really owns the wealth of a nation.
Yeah.
And yes, challenging those deeply entrenched power structures often gets you branded as dangerous or authoritarian.
But we have to be realistic here. This isn't a simple hero story. Traore faces enormous problems.
Absolutely enormous. Let's not romanticize it. Burkina Faso is still deeply unstable. The terrorist threat is severe. Schools are shut. Millions are displaced.
2 million displaced. That's staggering.
It is. And the economy is incredibly fragile. And critically, not everyone is on board with Traore. There are real worries about him just digging in, consolidating power.
Like Traore did after Sankara.
Precisely. The fear is another long-term military ruler hiding behind revolutionary talk. A human rights observer said it perfectly. We want dignity, yes, but we also want democracy.
A crucial point.
The last thing we need is another long-term military ruler wrapped in revolutionary slogans. That captures the dilemma.
So if the aim is dignity, sovereignty, does military rule actually deliver that? Or is it just trading one problem for another?
It's a huge gamble. For many Burkinabè right now, the security crisis is so bad, the previous civilian government seemed so ineffective that they're willing to bet on Traore's strong hand. They see him acting decisively.
Order and pride first, maybe democracy later.
That seems to be the calculation for some. But the risk highlighted by the human rights folks is real. Can you achieve lasting dignity without democratic freedoms? Can Traore deliver security and avoid the trap of authoritarianism? That's the tightrope he's walking.
Yet, despite those risks, it seems many people there feel he's genuinely trying to follow Sankara's path. He walks the walk, not just talks the talk.
That perception is strong, yes. And this isn't just happening in Burkina Faso. Look next door.
Mali, Niger.
Guinea, too. You see this wave of military leaders pushing back against France, against external dictates. It feels like a bloc is forming.
Led by soldiers, you said, but driven by sovereignty seekers.
Exactly. The uniforms are visible, but the deeper driver seems to be this widespread yearning for real independence, which leads to the big question. Are we seeing a kind of second liberation struggle?
Freeing themselves from neocolonial ties this time.
That's the idea. As one Pan-African scholar put it, Sankara's ghost doesn't haunt, it guides. And maybe Traore is the current vessel for that guidance. Not perfect, they said, but principled.
What does that second liberation really mean, though? Is it just about kicking out French troops, or does it go deeper?
Oh, it has to go deeper. It's not just swapping flags on military bases. It's about fundamentally changing the economic relationships, taking control of resources like those mines, building industries, making sure the wealth benefits the people.
Real economic independence.
Yes, and strengthening national institutions, fostering that self-reliant Sankara preached. The military pushback is just the most visible part. The real struggle is transforming the underlying systems that enable that neocolonial influence.
It all connects back to Sankara's legacy.
Yeah.
There's that incredibly poignant detail, his unmarked grave.
For decades, yes. His body hidden away, his memory suppressed by the regime that overthrew him.
But then in 2023, finally, a proper state funeral, Burkina Faso acknowledging him as its greatest son.
A powerful moment of national reconciliation, finally giving him his due. And Traore was there.
What was that like?
Reports described him as quiet, solemn, like a soldier honoring a general. Or maybe like a student finally standing beside his teacher, acknowledging the debt, the inspiration.
It really underscores Sankara's famous words.
While revolutionaries as individuals can be murdered, you cannot kill ideas.
Exactly. The idea lived on even when the man was gone.
Mm-hmm.
So thinking about this whole journey, these echoes between past and present, the question isn't really, is Traore the new Sankara?
No, that's too simplistic. The real question, the one that matters going forward, is whether he can actually finish what Sankara started.
Can he achieve that genuine liberation?
That's the ongoing struggle. It didn't end in 1987.
So if you're listening to this, maybe you're in Accra, Kinshasa, Johannesburg, maybe even Paris. Think about it. What does real freedom look like for you?
Yeah.
And who gets to decide that?
Because Traore, he might succeed, he might fail, he might become just another name in the history books. Leaders come and go.
Right.
But what really matters, perhaps, is that the idea persists. In the silence after speeches, in the dust of Ouagadougou's streets, the idea of true self-determination, of dignity, it's still there. It hasn't been killed.
Dare to invent the future.
Dare to invent the future.